Each of my clients were asked to go to the conference. I have a different appreciation of this being a privilege when you're told to drive to San Diego from Baton Rouge and back. They were required to drive. That wasn't their idea. Colonel Edmondson ordered, and that'll be produced. I've been knowing Colonel Edmondson for 20-something years or 30 years, and it pains me to say this, but you can't pay attention to what he says. He told the news media he didn't know anything about going to Las Vegas. He didn't know anything about the northern route.
You're state police. You're law enforcement.
We're not above the law, Lee.
I know, but what message does it send when people in law enforcement are behaving like this?
It sends a poor message to the public. And as me as a leader of that organization, I'm not going to stand for it.
This afternoon, Edmondson released a statement updating the investigation, but emphasizing he learned last week employees traveled through Las Vegas. But that may not be true. Here's a credit card statement for Darrell Williams with charges in Grand Canyon National Park and the Palazzo in Las Vegas. The signature of the supervisor who approved it is unrecognizable. But here's another document for Williams with what appears to be the same signature. And look at the name printed below it, Mike Edmondson, the superintendent of state police. While the superintendent claims he didn't know about the trip until last week, it appears he signed off on at least one expense report in late December, essentially approving one employee's side trip through the Grand Canyon in Vegas, paid for with your money.
Very clearly, the photographs show they kept him advised the entire time when they got to the Grand. They sent him photographs of the Grand Canyon. Here we are. Charlie Dupree, his second in command, sent him an email saying, send the boss photographs. For him to get up and then testify, to tell the news media and the public that he didn't have any idea they were at the Grand Canyon, didn't have any idea they were at Las Vegas. None of that was approved. It's just absolute falsity. And I think that's going to be clear. If you don't already know that from all the publicity and news articles, you're going to find out about it. Major Williams put down 8 hours for his time. Well, he just spent 18 hours on the road that first day, but he put down 8 hours. What is wrong with that? I think he was crazy, but that's what he put down. He only claimed 8 hours because he was a major. That's all he could claim and get paid for, so he didn't bother to try and document more than that. The same is true for each successive day. This man claimed 8 hours a day, regular time, except for the Saturday and Sunday. He claimed 8 hours of compensatory time, despite the fact that each day, the days were substantially longer than that. In regard to the expenses, you're gonna hear or you already have stipulations that this man, his expenses were approved by Colonel Dupree. His LaCarte card approving his hotels signed by Mike Edmondson. His time and expense signed by Dupree. And his time was signed by Edmondson, right? Edmondson. They're gonna make a big deal out of Sunday, saying Darrell Williams went play golf. He did. From 6 o'clock in the morning till 3-something in the afternoon. It was called a networking event. He was ordered by Colonel Edmondson to go play golf with the Motorola people to interface with them regarding their equipment. He said, yes, sir. But this has been a big part of this case for 2 years. Now, I guess Colonel Edmondson can get on the stand, and I don't know, I think he's going to testify. I'm hoping that Colonel Edmondson will tell you the truth. But he told the man to go play golf with him. He told the man to come have lunch with him. Continue talking about business. Why are we wasting a lot of time about his 8 hours on that day? Why are we wasting any time about his 8 hours times 10 when he worked way more hours than that? He was demoted. He was the major in charge of internal affairs, and he took a $15,000 demotion. $15,000. He didn't claim one nickel of overtime. He took a $15,000 demotion. I want that to sink in your heads, and I want y'all to understand that throughout the whole matter. Edmondson said he didn't know anything about this trip. He might have been out of the country, like he's out of the country today. He must have been out of the country then, too, because he claims he doesn't know anything about anything. Mr. Hyatt sent a check for $1,300-something. He said, I want to clear, this is in his mind, I want to clear all this up. He reimbursed $1,300 and some odd dollars. They reimbursed, not because they got money to give away, but they wanted to try and show good faith that they were trying to get this thing resolved. The most significant thing about good faith, Charlie Dupree told them that they could not claim their sleep time. Redo your expense statement. They did. And they under-submitted. They went to 12 hours at that point in time, although they had spent many more than 12 hours. And it's the responsibility of the supervisor to send them back. Let them correct them, get them approved the second time. That happened. Mr. Hyatt takes almost a $10,000 lick. And we're not talking about $10,000 one time. We're talking about $10,000 for years. It's a reduction in your pay. It's a reduction in your demotion. It's not like a suspension where you did bad, let's give you a 10-day suspension that costs you $1,500. This is a demotion that continues to cost you for years for the rest of your career. That's particularly true if you're in your, like Darrell, you're in your 20 plus years and you're approaching your retirement, because it's what you make in your 3 years prior to your retirement that determines how much you get, that's how much your retirement is based on. This has been devastating to this man. And what did he do? He played golf because the colonel told him he played golf. He charged 8 hours a day, although he spent a whole lot more time than that working. And he sent some photographs and he received some photographs. He did that. I don't think it ought to cost him over a course of his career $50,000, $60,000 because he sent some photographs on a departmental email as opposed to on his personal email. He made a mistake. The punishment in this matter was geared to the publicity. It's geared to the fact that this was on WAFB. I remember sitting in my living room with my wife on the 18th of February when Colonel Edmondson came on Channel 9 and announced that they were going to do an investigation of this matter. And I said, holy shit, this is going to take up my next 2 years of time. And boy, what a truism that turned out to be. There is multiple deficiencies in the way this investigation was conducted. There's multiple violations, police officers' Bill of Rights. Let's punish them because it looks bad. The department got to look bad. Well, guess who sent them on this trip? Mike Edmondson. This matter went before the state auditor. It went before the Board of Ethics. They weren't punished. They wasn't criticized. The finding was that Mike Edmondson directed the trip, told them where they could stop, where they could go, and he approved all of their expenses. And nothing's changed about that today, except that the Board of Ethics didn't look at the pictures Darrell sent on his telephone. But other than that, everything's the same. And that board considered the matter and decided Edmondson knew exactly what they were doing, approved what they were doing, suggested what they were doing. He's the one told Rodney Hyatt, take your wife Michelle with you. He took his wife. Other troopers, hard command, they all took their wives. But he told Rodney, take your wife, y'all enjoy it. You need to see the mountains. Well, there's no mountains on the last time I was on Interstate 10 going west. There's no mountains. The mountains on the northern route. He's the one that suggested they take the northern route. He knew exactly what he was doing. I don't criticize that. If I had to drive out there, I wouldn't want to go on I-10. Miller and Hyatt paid back more than they should have paid back, if they should have paid back anything. Major Williams kept waiting. He will testify to you. I kept waiting for them to tell me how much you want me to reimburse. Happy to do it. Nobody ever told him, because Mike Edmondson signed off on his time. Mike Edmondson signed off on his expenses. And I guess nobody was going to question what Mike Edmondson did. If anybody caused embarrassment to the Louisiana State Police, it was Mike Edmondson's directives to send 4 people on a trip, thousands and thousands of miles, so he could have a Ford Expedition at his beck and call and a driver in San Diego. That's what caused the adverse publicity and is the root of all of this. When all was said and done, that's what's important. Who directed this trip? Who demanded that he receive photographs of their progress along the way? The colonel of the state, the then colonel of the state police. And that's why all this bad publicity has evolved from all of this. Thank you.